Nathan, sir, please, how can I help? It appears my daughter's gone missing. Okay. No one has seen her, no? No. We phoned around the family, all her friends have contacted us, asking where she is, and none of them know. What's her name? Becky Watts.
There's Nathan Matthews, caught on camera in a B&Q store in Horfield, Bristol. But this isn't just a casual shopping trip. He's placing items into a suitcase, items that send a chill down your spine.
On the Friday, when Becky was reported missing, somebody had been to B&Q and had bought a circular saw, some gloves, goggles, and a face mask. Now that's a really significant moment for us because you're trying to figure out, well, what does that mean and where does that take us? Does it really mean that he is trying to dismember a body?
A mask, handcuffs, a stun gun, tape, thick black bin bags. It's all there. A disturbing checklist of tools crafted with one purpose: to kidnap Becky Watts. He's planned this out, down to every last detail, setting up his twisted plan to take the life of a 16-year-old girl who never saw it coming. Next, the CCTV footage captures Nathan's car, a Vauxhall Zafira, as it glides down the road. In the back, hidden from sight, lies Becky's body. Her phone and laptop are there too, as though they'd been ripped out of her life without a trace. To her family and friends, Becky was just gone, disappeared from her bed, from her room, from her world, without a single sign of where she could have gone. As her family grapples with her disappearance, Becky's face starts to pop up everywhere. Her missing poster becomes a silent scream, hung on neighborhood walls, bus stops, and social media feeds.
It began as a missing persons inquiry in a suburb of Bristol, but as the days passed and the searches widened, the appeals from the 16-year-old's family became ever more desperate.
Bex, if you're watching this, please come home.
It's a photo of a bright, young girl with a full life ahead of her, and for 10 long days, her family clings to hope, pleading for her safe return. The city watches, haunted by her image, as every street corner seems to echo her name, urging her to come home. But Nathan knows that Becky's never coming back, driving around in plain sight, carrying a horrific secret that would eventually crack open the community and leave it shattered forever. On February 19th, 2015, Becky Watts went about her day just like any other 16-year-old. She was resitting her GCSEs, studying hard to get her grades up. To anyone else, it seemed like an ordinary day, but by the time the next day rolled around, her family felt something was terribly wrong. It was 4 p.m, and they hadn't heard from her. It was unlike Becky to just vanish without a word, without some clue of where she was or what she was doing. They called the police, reporting her missing and saying that all of this was totally out of character for Becky. Earlier that same morning, she had been texting with her boyfriend, an 18-year-old named Luke. It was a casual back and forth between them, the kind of small talk lovers share to stay close. Around 11 a.m., Luke let Becky know he'd made it home and sent her a quick message. Becky responded right away, playfully texting back with a goodie XXX and a heart emoji. It was sweet, warm. She was alive, sharing her usual spark even over text. But that was the last text Luke would ever get from her. He didn't think much of it at first. He just figured she was busy, maybe caught up with something. But as the hours passed and Becky still hadn't replied, a weird feeling started creeping up on him. By early afternoon, he sent another message, a simple "Oi," in an attempt to catch her attention. No answer. He sent another one, "Becky, oi." Still nothing. It was so unlike her to just not reply, to leave him hanging like that. It wasn't like her at all. Finally, he sent one more message, "Hello." Simple, straightforward, a little desperate. But even then, silence. Luke didn't know it at the time, but Becky was already gone. She'd never see his texts, she would never be able to smile at her phone screen, nor would she have the opportunity to respond to his texts. While Luke was sending those messages, and while her family began to worry about her whereabouts, Becky was already trapped in the dark, sinister plan Nathan had laid out. She wasn't missing, she was gone, taken from them in a way that no one could have seen coming.
You're concerned about your well-being, just want to make sure that you're okay. If you can call home, one of your friends, phone us, the police, 101, just confirm where you are, let us know you're okay. You can work through any issues that you might be facing. I would also ask anyone who might have any information about where Rebecca is to come forward to us.
Bex, if you're watching this, please come home. We love you so much. I really think, sort anything out, don't matter. Come home.
Hours passed, and that sinking feeling in everyone's stomach only grew worse. It wasn't like Becky to leave her family, to leave Luke without any explanation, without even a goodbye. And for her family, that eerie quiet was unbearable. So, after Becky's family reported her missing and the search began, the story took an even darker turn. It wasn't a stranger who had taken her. Nathan Matthews, 28 years old, was family. He was the son of Angie Galsworthy, Becky's stepmother, and he had even stood beside Becky's dad, Dean, as his best man at their wedding just the year before. He wasn't just anyone. He was trusted, part of her extended family. Nathan worked as a delivery driver, dropping off takeout orders around town. He was known as a guy who was up for a laugh and always easygoing. And his girlfriend, 21-year-old Shauna Hoare, lived with him and helped care for his mother, Angie, who was dealing with serious health issues. They seemed like any other young couple, hard-working and maybe a bit quiet. To anyone around them, their life looked completely ordinary.
You were at the address at the time that Rebecca, or Becky, I think most people know
Becky,
her as, yeah? Becky.
Or Bex.
Yeah, okay. Do you know her as Becky or Bex?
Usually call her Bex.
But what went on behind closed doors was far from ordinary. Nathan and Shauna shared a hidden side that was deeply unsettling. They exchanged messages filled with disturbing fantasies. On their phones and computers, they kept material that showed a fascination with certain disturbing ideas. Their only obsession was pornography focused on teenagers, young women dressed as schoolgirls, and threesomes. And they didn't just keep it digital. They acted out these fantasies in real life, once even persuading a friend to join them in one of their scenes. But this was just the start, a build-up towards something darker. In February, Nathan's focus turned toward his stepsister Becky, just 16 years old. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, he began preparing meticulously. He assembled what he called a kidnap kit, a bag filled with gear like handcuffs and other tools to control his target. And he didn't plan this in isolation. Shauna was aware of his ideas, and their shared messages hinted at their growing obsession. To their friends, neighbors, and even close family members, Nathan and Shauna kept their regular life going without raising suspicion. He continued to make deliveries throughout the town, engaging in light-hearted conversations with friends and maintaining a facade. But deep down, he was focused on carrying out a plan, taking a disturbing step that no one saw coming. As those final days ticked down, the pair's exchanges only fed Nathan's intent. They lived in a dual world, one part ordinary, the other part hidden from view. Everyone around them believed they were a normal couple, but the truth lay in the shadows, waiting to emerge, until finally Nathan acted, tearing Becky's life away and leaving her family broken and searching for answers. So, after months of dark thoughts and mounting anger, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare decided to act. They didn't like Becky. They felt she had a hold over Nathan's mother, Angie, and over her father, Darren, too. The simmering tension between them eventually escalated to a critical level.
didn't particularly talk to her, but obviously I don't particularly like her. And obviously what annoys me is the way she speaks to like my mum sometimes. She'd be kind of like rude or whatever. I'm trying to think of an actual specific time.
They arrived at Becky's house on February 19th, carrying a red suitcase filled with their alleged kidnap kit. He had planned it all with one goal in mind: to terrify Becky and put her in her place.
So I came up with the idea to scare her, because, like, to try and basically make her more appreciative of life, so she'd be more appreciative for other people. She'd be, like, grateful that, you know, she wasn't harmed or anything like that, or, you know, because obviously she'd leave things out on the floor for my mum to trip over, and obviously would talk to her, like, saying nasty comments and talk to her like dirt on the floor.
Nathan had been thinking about this for months, waiting for the right moment. He knew his mother Angie would be out that day, and he saw it as the perfect chance. With Shauna waiting outside, smoking in the garden, he went up to Becky's room. He knocked on the door, and as soon as she opened, things took a dark turn. Nathan didn't waste any time. He taped over Becky's mouth and warned her to stay calm, saying she'd be fine if she just followed his lead. But Becky wasn't about to go along quietly. As he tried to handcuff her and wrestle her into the suitcase, she fought back, struggling to break free. Her resistance triggered something even darker in Nathan. He used his hands to restrict her breathing, and a brutal fight followed. Becky fought for her life, wriggling and resisting, but Nathan overpowered her. The struggle grew fiercer until, at last, her movements stopped. There was a heavy silence. Nathan noticed he couldn't hear her breathing. Something felt wrong. He checked for a pulse, but there was none. In that moment, he realized what he'd done. Becky was gone. But Nathan's response was chilling. He shut the suitcase, as though trying to cover up the reality of what had just happened.
Nathan Matthews tried ultimately to spin the lie that it had all been down to him, a kidnap plot to scare Becky, to try to teach her a lesson over how she'd been treating his mother, which went horribly wrong. His version, one of a brief struggle, accidental strangulation, and Shauna, outside in the garden, oblivious to it all. The reality, however, was very different.
He didn't stop there. After Becky's death, he took things even further. In the violent aftermath, he inflicted even more harm. After her death, a pathologist discovered that Becky had suffered rape, 15 stab wounds in her abdomen, and 40 bruises across her body, and 19 knife wounds. The brutality of her final moments left unspeakable scars.
Nathan Matthews was responsible for killing his stepsister in the most appalling of ways, and subsequently treated her body in the most barbaric, grotesque, horrific way. And I think that really people will draw their own conclusions of the type of individual that can behave in that way and can do what he's done.
Despite this, Nathan and Shauna continued as usual. Becky's family and friends had no idea about the nightmare that had played out in their own home, and for days, Nathan and Shauna moved on, acting like nothing had changed. So after Becky's death, Nathan and Shauna did the unthinkable. They took her body back to their place, as if they had nothing to hide. They were calm, disturbingly calm. That evening, they ordered a takeaway, sat down to play a game of Monopoly, and proceeded with their night as if nothing was unusual. The next day, they even shared a laugh over a twisted parody of a popular song, "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" from the film Frozen.
Elsa? Do you want to hide a body? Come on, we can't delay. We can hide it underneath the floor, or out the door before it can decay.
It was as if they found humor in it all, as if they were in on some dark, twisted joke that no one else knew about.
Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare ordered a takeaway, and watched a comedy video on YouTube entitled "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" They then began the process of hiding Becky's remains. The next morning, the 28-year-old bought a circular saw. Then, together, they bought tape, rubble sacks and cleaning products. When police searched their home, they found every room filled with junk and mess apart from the bathroom, which was spotlessly clean. This is where Becky's body had been dismembered.
And while all of this was unfolding, Becky's family and friends were frantically searching for her. Missing posters with Becky's face were everywhere. The whole community was on edge, hoping and praying for some clue, some sign of her. But Nathan and Shauna watched it all without a hint of guilt or regret. They went on, pretending to be concerned family members, watching the worry grow and the fear spread as people kept asking, "Where is Becky?" Meanwhile, Nathan tried to explain away his silence about Becky's fate, saying he thought he was somehow protecting everyone. He claimed he wanted them to believe Becky was okay and that she was somewhere safe and happy. But behind that lie, he knew exactly what he had done, and each passing day, the truth drew closer. It didn't take long for the police to suspect Nathan. They'd combed through the house he shared with Shauna, and on the surface, it looked clean. No sign of Becky's DNA, no trace of her blood. But then came the breakthrough. Investigators found a single telling piece of evidence. They discovered Nathan's fingerprint in a small spot of Becky's blood on her bedroom doorframe. That single fingerprint changed everything. It was the clue that connected him directly to Becky's last moments.
That's when we came across what appeared to be blood or red staining on the architrave of the door frame leading into Becky's room.
And within that blood staining is finger marks, so fingerprints, to what we call ridge detail within the police.
Armed with this evidence, the police zeroed in on Nathan. They knew they could use this against him. And in the formal interviews that followed, they leaned on this proof to break down his story. Bit by bit, they used the knowledge they gained to turn up the pressure and try to make him reveal what had really happened. Nathan's secret had been buried, but now it was only a matter of time before the truth was brought to light. Becky's body was finally discovered on March 2nd, hidden away in the garden shed of friends of the couple, Carl Demetrius and Jadine Parsons. They later admitted they had helped Nathan Matthews in exchange for a share of money he promised them, a bribe to keep quiet. But the horror didn't end there. The authorities found Becky's remains wrapped in cling film, stuffed into plastic bags, layered with bath mats and a shower curtain, all hidden inside a suitcase. Nathan claimed Shauna had no part in Becky's murder or the terrible acts that followed. But there were signs all along that the truth was darker than that. It turns out Shauna had even searched for "How do you hide a body" on YouTube the day after Becky's death. And Becky herself had told a few close friends she was scared of Nathan. Her best friend Courtney remembered times when Nathan had made sickening comments, even describing violent ways he could harm her.
She told me on numerous occasions that he had described how he would kill her, and she was scared of that. Because it's obviously not something you'd normally say to somebody, and the fact it happened so often, it was obviously concerning to her.
How seriously did she take that?
Seriously enough to be upset by it, but not seriously enough to never be near him again and refuse to be near him. Obviously, you don't expect somebody to do what he did.
Becky shared her fears with a child psychologist, confiding that Nathan terrified her. The warning signs were there, but no one imagined how far things would go. Nathan's obsession with Becky started long before this. He would do strange things, like jump out at her from nowhere just to make her scream, finding her fear amusing. And others noticed too. Nathan's behavior grew more troubling, but no one could have guessed it would end this way. Now, Nathan and Shauna's relationship was far from normal. Behind closed doors, there was violence. Nathan was controlling, and he didn't hold back when it came to lashing out at Shauna. Once, he even dragged her by her hair and squeezed her throat so hard she couldn't breathe. She later said it terrified her, feeling panicked as he choked her. But the control went beyond the physical. Nathan had his ways of manipulating her mind. He constantly criticized her, labeling her as fat despite her slim build, and persistently nagging her about her smoking habit. She had to beg for basics, like food or money for cigarettes, feeling like he treated her more like a child than a partner. And it wasn't just about control. He wouldn't let her make friends, and he stopped her from going to college when he felt she was getting close to other men. Then there was another theory. Some people close to Nathan believed Shauna had a powerful influence over him. His grandmother Margaret never approved of Shauna and saw her as a dominant force, saying that Nathan seemed to lose himself when he was with her. She noticed his mental health slipping during their time together, watching as he became increasingly paranoid. Nathan was deeply afraid of losing her. Once, when Shauna mentioned she wanted to leave, he panicked, stabbing himself with a fork and scratching at his own face in a desperate attempt to keep her from going. His need for her was overwhelming, like he couldn't imagine his life without her. When he stood trial, Nathan took the blame, claiming full responsibility for Becky's murder and insisting Shauna wasn't involved. The prosecution saw it differently, though. They described Shauna as a mastermind, someone who steered Nathan's actions, comparing her to Lady Macbeth and saying she manipulated him into covering up the crime.
Nathan Matthews claimed it was an accident, that he hadn't meant to kill his stepsister. Shauna Hoare, who was pregnant at the time, insisted she had nothing to do with it, but the jury did not believe them. It took them just 3 hours to decide the pair had conspired to kidnap 16-year-old Becky Watts and that they killed her in a sexually motivated attack.
At the time all this was happening, Nathan and Shauna had isolated themselves from the world. Their home was cluttered and filthy, with dirty dishes and mess everywhere. They barely left their bedroom, even keeping a toaster and kettle beside the bed so they didn't have to move far for food or drink. Shauna was pregnant then, and their lives seemed centered around one another, bound by a bond that no one could fully understand. To the detectives who investigated, it was clear this twisted relationship, built on control and hidden secrets, was what ultimately led to Becky's death. Their shared dark interests only fed their actions, and their time together became more like an isolated world that no one could reach until it was too late.
Have you got any concerns or suspicions that Nathan or any other member of your family or extended family might be responsible for her disappearance?
No. No.
Why are you so sure?
Because none of them would do anything like that.
After the grim discovery of Becky's remains, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare faced a devastating setback. They had managed to hide their twisted actions for a while, but with Becky's body found, there was nowhere left to run. The police charged both Nathan and Shauna with Becky's murder. The trial went on for nearly 5 weeks, filled with details so dark they left the courtroom shaken. When it was all over, Nathan was the only one found guilty of murder. Despite her deep involvement, Shauna's conviction was for manslaughter. She ended up with a 17-year sentence, serving time in Bronzefield Women's Prison in Surrey. Carl Demetrius and J. Dean Parsons, who had stored Becky's remains for Nathan, also received prison sentences. They claimed they had no idea what was in those bags they'd hidden, but the court didn't buy it. They were sentenced for assisting an offender, bringing an end to their role in this horrifying story. Nathan, on the other hand, received a severe sentence, 33 years in prison, for the murder of his stepsister. They sent him to Long Larton Prison in Worcestershire to serve his sentence. Despite everything, both he and Shauna appealed their sentences in June 2016, but the appeal was rejected outright. For Becky's father, Darren, Hearing about the appeal felt like a slap in the face. He was shocked they would try to cut their time after causing so much pain. The judges agreed, stating there was no real reason to change the sentences or argue that the convictions were unfair. Ultimately, Nathan and Shauna found themselves confronting the repercussions of their decisions, imprisoned and facing a sentence they could not break. But for Becky's family, the pain never really left. It was a long, dark chapter, one that had changed everything for those who loved her, leaving scars that no sentence could ever heal.